Welcome to the Top 200 podcast with your host, Herschel Fawn.
What's up, everybody? This is Herschel from High School Top 200, and this is the Monday morning meeting. Welcome to this morning's podcast again. Week 9 of games for the High School Top 200 ranking, and also just another smooth day of a smooth week of just first 15 rugby. There was a lot of traveling for me, and I'm so sorry again. I apologize again to the quad tournament. I was there on Monday and then had to leave Tuesday morning or Tuesday afternoon, race back to Hamilton, and then 4 in the morning, Wednesday morning, drive up to Kaikohe for a funeral, and then drive back and then go to work at midnight that same day. And so everything's been kind of behind, but thanks a lot for the support and just understanding as well. I mean, rugby is rugby, but to me, life and family support and friend support and all that kind of stuff's more important than anything else. So, I haven't been up north, like all the way up north that far for like years since I've been in high school. And like, I can understand why, I guess, Northland feels detached from the rest of New Zealand sometimes, because man, it was just so far and so removed from everything else. Even going to Whangarei was like really, I don't know if I was just tired or really wasted that day or that morning. But even making my way from like North Harbour, like the Albany area up to Whangarei, and I was thinking about that too, the time that we were driving, I was thinking, oh well, Manureo have to make this trip, and Whangarei have to do this trip, pretty much every other week, where they have to make their trip down here, well, not down here, but into Auckland anyway. And just imagining how hard that is for them and the boys and the staff, and also the school, and providing trip and all that kind of stuff and funding for that. And I really have a lot of sympathy for you guys, your guys' drive as well. And I mean, I realize it too, being here in the Super 8 competition and how much it takes for people to drive. But it's, I don't know, for some reason, like, if you go to Palmy, you still feel connected to the country, even in the Hawke's Bay or New Plymouth. But for some reason, when I went up north, you just feel like you detached, and you sort of became like, you were like in another country. Like I needed my passport or something to, be allowed in. But that's kind of just how it felt, just being that far away. But anyways, I was, throughout this week, I was looking at some of the, football news that goes through, and I always go scrolling around on Facebook and Instagram and kind of looking at what things are put out. And I saw the Maori team that was put out, the Maori squad that was coming together in a training, and I started asking around, and I know that the Maori team was given out to coaches, but I know that a lot of kids did not receive the right information in terms of applying and signing up for that team, and what it and all the information that kind of goes with it too, right? If you put your name in because you're Maori and you want to represent your culture and all that kind of stuff, and when you want to put on that jersey for them, and just because you sign up, it doesn't mean that you can't make New Zealand secondary schools. You still have the decision in the end to do that. So like, if you're unsure, you still sign up for the Maori team, still sign up and put your name through and all those kind of things, because the Maori team is also is like, the New Zealand secondary school is not the only pathway. The Maori schools under 18 team is also a great pathway to go through too, and to be able to Well, one thing it does really give you a lot is also the extra training and extra coaching that you get from a rep team. And it is to me, in terms of coaching, and is sort of a step above or on the same platform as what you would get at the Hurricanes and Chiefs and Blues. And the added bonus that you get is, like, for those that don't feel like they're a part of their culture for whatever reason, like, you know, everyone's got different reasons in terms of why they don't, they're not an active, like, I guess, total immersion Maori school and all that kind of stuff, and, you know, part of your culture and all that kind of stuff. Is like, whatever those circumstances are, being part of the under 18 Maori team gives you an added advantage to be able to go and even not just play rugby, but to learn about your culture and feel attached to your culture, and just to learn more about where you come from when you fuck pop and your iwi and all that kind of stuff, where your marae is. Some kids might not even know where their marae is, and so it'll give you a chance to get through all of that too. And please don't feel like you're like plastic and you won't be accepted and all that kind of stuff. It's not like that at all. The Maori team is there for rugby as well as culture equally, and so don't feel like you can't play for that team, or don't feel like you don't deserve to be there. Go to your coaches if you haven't had the right information or anything like that, and go and ask them for the right information. And it's not closed off at all, by any means. It's not closed off. So even next year, like, keep this in mind for next year. All you year 11s and year 12s, keep in mind for next year as well. You can still put your name through and still be a part of that for next year too, because it is open to everybody. And the coaching along with the culture stuff is great, and it's just one of those extra pathways that you go. I mean, like even Ruben Love. I mean, like Ruben Love. Like, there's guys like that have come through that team as well. But also, like, look at what they did with the Irish side, you know. And I'm not like making like a comparison, but I'm saying that, like, coming through those channels is also the right way to do it. Anything that gives you that advantage or that push or potential step up is the right way to do it. And the Maori selection is a great way to do it. I think it's one of those other things that is not talked about too much. I don't know why they don't push that that side of it enough with New Zealand rugby, because it is another great way to get everything that you need. And there's so many good, Maori rugby players. The other thing is that, like, because of my age, and I guess some of your parents that are around my age, like 35 and upwards kind of area, there's a lot of half-caste Samoans, Māoris, Tongans, Māoris, Niuean Māoris, Palangi Māoris, like, but it's just not pushed on that side. And so some of them need to feel like you can come back over and you can go and learn about your Māori side if you join the team, because they don't just go through rugby stuff, it goes through everything. And it's just a great way of doing it. And then you get the extra rugby on the side. There's no harm in doing it. I think it's just another step for rugby in New Zealand as well as for Māori culture, because Māoris are the ones are the owners of this land. I don't care what people say. To me, that's how I feel. Like, I was born here, I was raised here, but all in all, I'm Samoan and I'm a guest here, and that's kind of the way that I feel and the way that I pay respects to Māoris wherever I go and whatever marae I've been on. And like, I've been to so many maraes, like me growing up sort of in a Māori school here at Church College. All we had was like 97% Māori or something like that. Everybody else was like a few Samoans and Tongans, a few Palangis, but most of all it was just Māoris at our school. So a lot of my friends that I have are all Māoris, growing up with Māoris all around, and I'm familiar with what you can and can't do in terms of culture. So like, this is a great way for everybody else to, if you're not familiar with your culture and you want to learn more and get rugby in at the same time, it's a great way to do it. And then so just keep asking your coaches, asking your sports directors, how can you be a part of it? Or if you missed out, like, if there's still a shot and chance for you to get back in there. So go ahead and do that, and just see what happens. There's no harm in trying. And so just go and see what you think. The other thing I was thinking about too, because I mean, I was saying before that I was going to put out my Maori team before even this. I didn't even know this team was coming out, but I was going to put out my Maori team anyway, which I still might do, because there were players that I know that are Maoris that I think are at that level that I think should probably be added to that squad, and that should have a go. But I mean, I was thinking, well, if they get a shot at it, why can't a New Zealand Samoan team or New Zealand Tongan team be added to? Because I've also chosen those as well. We've got so much talent with Samoans and Tongans here. I just thought, well, why not? Why not get these going? Obviously, I'm not making a push for a real push at why we shouldn't. I'm just putting forward why we're not already doing that. Why we're not already, putting those pathways in there to get more kids playing some kind of rep rugby. I mean, like we do it with sevens. They pick a New Zealand 7 Samoan team, they pick a New Zealand Tongan Samoan team, they pick a New Zealand Fijian Samoan team, a New Zealand Fijian Sevens team, which that New Zealand Sevens Fijian team, you guys are going to have a field day with that selection. There's so many good players out there for sevens, for Fijians, and the talent that they have with their Fijian sevens team is going to be so good. Like, whoever's in that New Zealand team is going to have a lot of pressure trying to beat that New Zealand Fijian team. But for me, I was thinking, why not get that going? I mean, the funding is the problem, and that's all it was. I would be keen to jump in and do a New Zealand Samoan team, and if anyone else that is out there that wanted jump on with me, I would be happy to do it, and would find funding, and I'll just select the players that I want to select that don't make New Zealand secondary schools. Barbarians is like, I don't know, whatever. To me, that's not really the second team, the Barbarians team. I mean, I honestly don't know what New Zealand Barbarians do for New Zealand first 15 apart from like the top 4. But I mean, even in that, it's just like, well, where are you the rest of the year? I really don't know. I may be real ignorant and not know that they do a lot, but for me, what I've looked through, they don't actually contribute a lot into first 15 rugby except for that. And I'm just talking first 15 rugby, not rugby as a whole, just first 15 rugby. Now, if they sponsor heaps of different things, please let me know. But for me, is what I've looked at and what I looked into, they don't cover anything else. So I don't see why I can't just do the same. Why can't I be an organization and go, well, if I get the funding and I get the money and get the okay, why can't I just pick my New Zealand Samoan team and then I'll play against, the New Zealand secondary school team. Or better yet, let me pick a Barbarians team. How about I pick a high school top 200 team? And then we'll get all the funding out there, and then we'll see what players want to go to where. Because, like, whatever happens, like, no one's going to say no to a New Zealand secondary school team. But let's say I get my funding, and let's see if kids would want to go New Zealand Barbarians or come to the top 200 team. Because, in all seriousness, like that New Zealand Barbarian team doesn't actually have a push when it gets into the next level. They just really care about the New Zealand secondary school, but not really about the Barbarians. Because I mean, a lot of the times when these rep teams are picked anyway, they're picked based off what their style of play is, what they want to run in their systems. They pick players to fit that. They don't pick the best players and then find a system. If I was to select a team, I'll just select the team of all the best players and then get the coaches that are good enough to go, okay, I know what all these guys do, and I'll just work out a system based on that. Because that, to me, I'll just get really good coaches. I don't see why we have to pick a system before you pick players. I mean, I'm not too sure what that proves. Because it doesn't really say that you've picked the best players. You're just picking the best player that fits your system. And I personally just don't think that's right. So I don't know what that, I don't know what you have to do or what people you have to ask or whatever, but I mean, if money was the only problem and I could find the funding, then if New Zealand Rugby gave me the yes to make a New Zealand high school top 200 team that could play the New Zealand secondary schools, I'll do that. I'd 100% do that. Because, I mean, I feel like selectors get these wrong all the time. I believe they picked wrong players a lot. And they have right from the start of seeing this, and this is just me doing 9 years of high school top 200, but what about all the other years? I mean, I've looked at New Zealand secondary schools back to 98, and I've actually seen how many names per team, per New Zealand secondary school teams, have actually made it to the All Blacks or Super Rugby. A bunch of them make it to ITM Cup or like NPC or whatever you want to call it, but in terms of playing Super Rugby, those that have only played a few games of Super Rugby and those that have actually maintained their way through, as well as then to make it to the All Blacks, or if they make it to internationals, like if they play for Japan, or if they play for, like Ireland and England and all those kind of things. I've done those kind of things too. But in in terms of looking at selections and how they've done it, there's a small percentage that make it through. And then what I've also wondered is what is the percentage of those that came through with the same guys that weren't selected for New Zealand secondary schools or under 19s, and then actually jumped all of those and then actually made it to the All Blacks or made it to Super Rugby? Because that would be another sort of fun kind of fact that you would want to have a look at and go, maybe it's the way in which they do it is not right. Well, there's holes in that system. But I mean, those are just things that I've been thinking about, especially when I saw this, the Maori team, and going, okay, if that's the case, I mean, they picked sevens teams that are based off New Zealand players that are Samoans and Tongans and Fijians. Why not do one that are 15s? I mean, just look at the quad. I mean, I was at the quad, and even if you pick players from there alone, you could come off with a good quad tournament team, which is I was gonna do. I mean, I might still do it, but I mean, I already had that planned of what I was gonna do with a quad tournament team, because I don't think they pick one when they're there. But I mean, even with them, there's a whole bunch of Māoris that attend just within those four teams. Even Samoans and Tongans and that. I mean, there's a bunch of those kind of guys. So, why wouldn't you choose or be able to choose players from those teams and then have good ones? That Nelson was my pick to win it from the start. But Wellington should have beat them. Nelson was the better team, but I don't think they deserved that win. And I feel like they got outplayed by Wellington College. And even with the amount of pressure that Wellington was putting on Nelson just found a way to get out of it, you know. Stanley Solomon obviously was massive for Wellington College and what they do. Laquan was another one at centre. He was great. The hooker was another one that the open side was great. I think Jack Riley, I think his name is. These are just, sorry, it's just all off the top of my head. Him and like Devon Sopwanga was another one at 9. And all these guys like really contributed a lot to Wellington pushing Nelson that far that they almost had the upset. And it really was one of those games where I felt like the wrong team won. Even though I was picking Nelson from the start to win the quad as a whole, at the end of the game, I just kind of had this feeling like, man, Nelson was really lucky. I'm not too sure. You know, if you just watched it without scores, like I just thought they just deserved to win. That Wellington team deserved to win. I mean, it wasn't like, like the Christ College game and the Whanganui game was a bit different, where like you clearly saw that Christ College was the better team. They were the better team, and they played better too. And it was just their moments and glimpses of, I guess, relaxing. That's when you see Conrad Newell come through, and you saw what is his name? Meyer, the captain, come through, get some of those turnovers that he did. Peter at first 5 was another one. Even with the midfield, Monty Sheriff at the back as well. Like that's where they started really firing. But the glimpses that Christ gave them, Whanganui capitalized on. But in terms of like the whole game, you just didn't. You didn't think, or you didn't have this second mind of thought that Whanganui were better than Christ. Christ just showed how good they actually were. But then when you watch the second games, right, it was almost a complete opposite. Like I thought Wellington was going to win, and they didn't. And I thought Christ was going to do a better job, and Nelson just blew them off. The way that I kind of thought Nelson would anyway, but blew them out way past what I thought it was going to be. Like 48-7 is not really a final score that you're looking for. And then Whanganui winning was also like one of those like surprises, like, oh shoot, they won. And I kind of felt like once I saw Wellington lose, I looked at the Saturday game against St. Brendan's, I was like, oh man, St. Brendan's is not going to win this game. Wellington's not going to lose 3 times in 1 week. And Wellington came up big time against St. Brendan's, and I just don't think it was a game that St. Brendan's was ever going to win, especially when Wellington lost 2 close games, like 2 really close games. That show of character that Wellington College built over those 2 games really showed out in that Wellington performance against St. Brendan's on Saturday. So feel sorry for the St. Brendan's boys, but Wellington College really came out with something. I guess something really special when it comes into a team environment like that, because being able to build a lot of character through losing can really take you a long way. It really can. And if this carries Wellington College through to the finals and to win the finals, I would look back at the quad and go, even though they lost quad, that was a better enough excuse to lose those 2 games to gain that in the end. Wellington is a good side. Wellington is they try really hard. They put a lot of effort into it. Like there's not a lot of teams that have that. Like as much as Wellington throughout this year have lost some games, I've never seen the effort drop off in terms of the boys putting in a lot. Like I've always felt that they gave a lot to the game and gave a lot to their team and giving them as much as they can to win a game. Even if they didn't win the game, I felt like they gave enough effort to care about it. Like I've seen a lot of boys switch off when it comes down to it. They just switch off and they just don't care at all. But the quad tournament is a great tournament. I've always wondered why, I've always kind of wondered why girls, and I've talked about this before, right? I've talked about this before in terms of girls rugby, because I really want girls rugby to work. I really want girls rugby to, girls first 15 to really thrive and build something that the boys also have right now. And I feel like it can. I feel like this is the right moment to do it. And, with the Silver Lake deal that New Zealand has now signed with the All Blacks and New Zealand Rugby, I hope a lot of money has gone into, or I hope a bit of that money has gone into girls rugby as a whole in New Zealand, but also as in first 15. Like I came up with this idea of doing a tens tournament every twice every term, twice every term in the first in the last 3 terms. So like in term 2, 3, and 4, have a tens tournament 2 times, where everyone meets within their region, and then they do it that way. And they name a tournament team as in terms of talent ID, as well as you have tens where you have enough girls to fill out a team, as well as tens being enough girls to go, oh, okay, this is what our region has got. And then from tournament teams, you're picking a tournament team, you're picking MVP, and then from those tournaments throughout the year, you're able to pick a strong enough girls Blues team, a girls Chiefs team, as well as Crusaders and Highlanders Hurricanes. And that would be a better way of being able to have girls all see each other within their region, being able to become familiar with each other and go, oh, okay, that's that school. They'd get to know each other's uniforms, each other's crests, where their school is from, building all these things that boys have already. And until the numbers all build up, me personally, I suggest tens, and then traveling with a tournament of tens 2 times a term, and so that those have to travel long distances. They're only looking at 2 trips, not actually looking every other week a trip, instead of 2 trips a term, instead of 6 trips in a term to wherever they're going to travel to. And at least on one day of 1 or 2 days of I guess a term, you get to play an amount of 8 or 9 different teams, so that you can get through all that kind of stuff and have each other familiar with everybody, and then pick a great rep teams out of those things, and so they can have their own camp, which the boys get. And I think that would be a great way for girls who are a year 11 that will make these rep teams, who are also just phenomenal players, and them get to build themselves up into these franchises as well, as a Blues girl, as a Chiefs girl from year 11, then be able to become leaders within them and then push them through like you would in rep teams. And so that was that was my idea, and I still think it will work. I still think that'll work. I still think that's a great way for it to work, where money's not so high, the cost of it's not so high. You'll be able to fill out a lot of teams, as well as be able to get the best players all in one area, and be able to sort of entice these girls who are playing women's club rugby to come back to their school, as well as to make these trips and make these rep teams. But also, for some of the girls teams that are really serious, I think a quad tournament for girls would be another good way to get teams playing each other consistently. And I always kind of looked at, well, Hamilton girls here are one of the best teams consistently in New Zealand. And then you have ones like Fielding and Manukura is another one, and St. Mary's. And I don't know why those four don't have a quad every single year, and be able to build that up as a tradition going on. You know, just those four teams. And there's not to say that there's other teams that can't do that, but I was saying, well, if you get one to do that, something like that, maybe other schools would look at it as a template and go, oh, cool, well, they do it. It's like, why don't we do one ourselves? I mean, I've been watching Sacred Heart Girls in New Plymouth. I've been getting their scores, and then I think they just beat Rotorua and Tauranga this year as well. And they're another school that probably should get a lot of shine. Sacred Heart Girls here in Hamilton is a really good school too. I know Auckland Grammar's doing really good. Christchurch Girls is another school that's freaking killing, schools down there. And maybe they should get into a quad situation with somebody else. I mean, that would be pretty cool if they came up here and joined, 3 schools from here up in the North Island. But I feel like that would be one of those kind of things to go, wow, if we can sparkle up in here, maybe all the other stuff will just roll off and the example of that other schools will be like, oh, cool, we want to do that too, and then jump in with some other schools. I mean, Mags does great up in Auckland. Their girls team is really good. So is Auckland Girls. Their team is really good. From the things that I follow, Wesley and Manurewa, their teams do great. Aorere Girls, I think, have a pretty good team too. I mean, I've seen in the past Westlake Girls have some good teams, some good solid players come out of there. Oh, sorry, obviously Howick College, doing great on that front as well with their sevens program that's really kind of leaked into their 15s, and they've come out with 2 Super Rugby players for the girls' side that I know of. So it's really cool, and I like these kind of ideas, right? Like, I like these ideas to be able to get this level of players into that next level, and it's really, to me, it's really important at this time that we have with how many girls are not coming into high school starting to learn how to catch and pass and play and all that kind of stuff. They've come from touch backgrounds and tag backgrounds, and they've brought it into school, and then teaching them all the rest of the stuff hasn't been such a long process of this is how you pass the ball, and this is how you catch the ball, and this is how you run lines, and all that kind of stuff was already bought with them. And so that's one of the cool things as well that I kind of thought about. Just thinking about the quad, it was just like, because I kind of don't understand why girls rugby, especially I'm just talking about my area, it's like if we got Super Rugby, if we got Super 8 here, why isn't there Super 8 for the girls? Why haven't those principals got together and going, okay, well, let's start one. Maybe just start one with, rugby and netball, or rugby, netball, and basketball, or hockey or soccer, whatever you want to do, and then get those competitions flowing through those schools and getting these traditions of these, of that going on. Because me personally, I would love to report on that kind of stuff. Like, I'd love to, do reports and photos and footage, and just be able to, I can go and watch any kind of sports live. I just love sports. I love sports, and I'll go watch netball, I'll go watch basketball, I'll go watch hockey. I don't really mind as long as it's high school level stuff. That's why my idea from the start was high school top 200 was based around high school. It wasn't just based around rugby. It just made it so hard that I've just had to stay on rugby and stay diligent and obedient to what I was building first before everything else came on. And it's just been so hard just to get off the ground with the obvious reasons of why I haven't gone through with New Zealand rugby. But high school top 200 was always about all the sports. I just had to start with one. And I don't know if I started with the right one or not, but I would have loved to start with basketball first. But New Zealand's New Zealand, and I've loved doing first edition rugby. It really has sort of opened my eyes to all these other possibilities that we could have had too.
Oh, come round. It's a penalty try.
But with, I guess with all those happening, with all the quad and stuff happening, like the CNI had to make up. I haven't seen this game, but the CNI had to make up for a game, right? So St. Paul's and Wesley, they, I think Wesley was the one that was sick. They had Wesley College, I think, shut down for almost a week because there were just so many kids sick, and that was the week that they were supposed to play St. Paul's, and so they played them again. They played them on Wednesday, and after St. Paul's just got added to the top 25 rankings because they drew with Fielding High School, the number two at the number two rugby team at the time, which was just last week. They lose to Wesley College 15-14, and I haven't seen the game yet, and I don't know if they had someone recording it, but from what I was told, it wasn't that great of a game for St. Paul's. And whatever the reasons may be, like, you just got to try and win. Like, your objective is to win whatever elements that go into it. I mean, if you've got the rock, do something with it. It's kind of the way that I see it. And for them to be that, to fight out of it that much and still Wesley just come out on top, that's a big salute to Wesley, because Wesley's actually a struggling program right now, and like it's not something I like talking about because obviously the boys that are involved, but at the same time, I always have this vision of what Wesley College is, and a lot of guys my age and a little bit older than me, or your uncles and dads and grandparents and stuff, know Wesley College as this big, thriving school for juggernaut like Wesley College teams, which is not the case that it is right now, and hasn't been pretty much since 2017, I guess, 16 maybe. And even though we got Vai Tupou out of Wesley College, who's now an All Black and probably going to be an All Black for the next 10 years, the program as a whole has not been the same. The culture of rugby in that school has not been the same. The school spirit, even in a way, to me, is not the same as what I remember it used to being. And if they don't sort that out, it's I'm not saying it's the end of Wesley College, but it's the end of that aura of what Wesley College is slipping away pretty fast. And I know that staff and faculty and stuff are doing as much as they can and doing it pretty fast now to try and get it back. And my wishes and hopes is that they do get it back, because it's a great program to have and it's a great community to have, especially in first team rugby too, along with all those massive traditions that they have in terms of rugby icons like, you know, Jonah Lomu himself. It's always going to be the school of Jonah Lomu. You don't want the school of Jonah Lomu to not be a rugby school anymore, because there's Jonah Lomu and there's Charles Pietau and there's Tuunga Fasi and, you know, Casey Laulala and, you know, Augustine Pulu, heaps of guys that have all come through that school, that are all just internationals, like, and they're all Blacks, and even Tongan and Samoan international, Fijians internationals. Like, there's a whole bunch of them, you know. I mean, I hope that they get back to that stage. I hope they get back to that stage of dominance again. I mean, I just, one of those things that I wish you just wouldn't lose. That you couldn't lose. Other games from this weekend. Silverstream, they played Rongotai, winning 27-3, which sounds about right, and even when you watch the game, it kind of looks that way. There were some great positives that Rongotai showed. I wish that they played with a little bit more structure, because I think with a bit more structure, because Silverstream was taking them out of their system and out of their flow pretty easily. And then once they lost it, it was almost like a panic kick away, because they didn't know how to reset what they wanted to do. And I don't think they're far off being a really good side. There's just like little things that are missing from Rongotai's team, because they have really good talent. They've got players there, and the leadership there is still there too. So it doesn't take much. But I mean, like, Silverstream is Silverstream regardless of what happens. You still got the stars that you have there, like Toby and Emmanuel, and Sinelli is there, guys like that, that you could easily, I guess, turn to get you back on track. I mean, Farrell's there, which is good. Farrell Gray's there, at number 8, and he's really good. At first 5 as well, he's kind of escaped my mind, but he's been there since third form, but he's another one. But Rongotai just are missing something, and maybe that's a little bit more experience on that team. Next year they'll be pretty good in terms of experience, because I know that there's a lot of guys there that are going to be back next year in some pretty cool positions that be able to help. So maybe that's what it'll be, is to look for next year. All the top 5 teams won. Hamilton, Rotorua, St. John's College Hamilton, St. Peter's College, and Fielding, they all won their games. Obviously Napier and Hastings lost, because they lost to number 1 and number 2 in the country, Hamilton and Rotorua boys. Still really strong, hard games that were like that Hastings game, getting that try in the end, for Rotorua. And because Rotorua and Hastings were pretty even for that whole match. I felt that they were pretty even. I felt that there wasn't much between the two schools to sort of really say who was so dominant over the other. But I thought for the most part, when it came down to I guess who controlled the match, it wasn't really dominant just one way. And I think it took right to the end for any kind of real separation. I mean, I think it was Leo Sanato was the guy that scored the last try. Sione Tupou scored the other try, and this was the 33rd minute of the game, and then they won it right at the end, and it was just a lot of forward. There's just a lot of forward progression in terms of not backing down and just keep driving and pushing, and Rotorua just showed, I guess, how good they were in terms of being able to win big games, because that's just one of those kind of things that Rotorua, I guess any big team like that has that kind of effect on the game, is that just knowing when you can win a game, and Rotorua just never looked like they were going to, and they were going to lose it, and Te Haumana didn't play in that game either. He was out injured, and so that took a lot away. But I don't think A1 played either for Hastings boys, which also took away a big time player out of Hastings line. So they kind of cancelled each other out, really. St. John's College Hamilton winning 44-10 over Rathkill down there. Haven't seen any film yet of it, but hopefully some pops up. I'll go and have a look around and see what comes up with that, because St. John's is putting up so many points this year. This has got to be probably one of their best years in the history of St. John's. And me being from Hamilton, St. John's is just known as a basketball school here, and still is. They still got a really good basketball program. But, you know, like just the way that they've been playing rugby, they've just been killing it. They're making everyone wonder how long this is going to go for. And the top 3 teams in the country are Hamilton, Rotorua, and St. John's, and they're all Chiefs teams. They're going to have to figure it out on the field who goes to the top 4. And to me, in all honesty, Hamilton's not a guaranteed number 1 contender for that, because I still think that Rotorua that Rotorua can beat them, and I still think St. John's can beat Hamilton too. It's just that belief. I don't know if St. John's has that belief yet. St. Peter's winning against De La Salle 26-20 is a pretty big tell on how close that Auckland, that 1A is. 6 points between those two teams. It's got to be pretty, I guess, there's a lot of nervousness in that. And so, like, well, I guess you'll see in the next coming weeks what happens there, because, I mean, St. Peter's don't have to worry. St. Peter's has already kind of made it through, and, I mean, they're sitting at the top of their competition on 32 points, and so they're not going to miss out on the top 4, especially when teams like Sacred Heart lose to Dilworth. Like, you know, there's not really much else that you can say after that kind of stuff. And then Kelston winning again. Kings losing a game. You know, Mags losing to De La Salle was like a big one, or else Mags would have been second. And, you know, Auckland Grammars on their way, you know, losing as well. I think Mags' game against Liston, you know, scoring so few points also didn't help the fact that they needed those for and against points to sort of make their case and, you know, their confidence side of things. Christchurch Boys is they got another win. St. Thomas got another win. I guess with Nelson College as well, getting their 2 wins will fly up the board kind of thing. Just I think they lost that Nelson had early on was kind of sort of like uncharacteristic kind of thing, because, you know, like, and I guess like when you start off the year, you kind of don't know what kind of team you are, or you don't really understand what you are as a team. And their loss to Timaru early on in the year has been sort of a black mark on their season, because, I mean, if Timaru was doing really good as well, I mean, where's Timaru sitting? Timaru sitting 6th. Now, if Timaru was sitting in the top 4, that loss wouldn't seem so bad. And, like, 6 isn't bad either, but it's still not a good look. I mean, Timaru beating Otago Boys is great in terms of, like, tradition and their head-to-head that they have, the exchange that they have, because from what I was told, Timaru hasn't beaten Otago Boys since 2009. And so that's great for them in the whole, but then even when it comes to national rankings, it's like, well, Otago hasn't been winning that much either. So if Otago losing to Timaru beating Nelson, in terms of that loss and what that means, is just like, well, that's kind of a painful loss to Nelson College, even if it is early on in the year. And even if you do have these kind of excuses of why that doesn't work, it's just like, well, it's not really a team you should lose. And I think that even if Nelson played them today, Nelson would probably clean them by about 15 to 20 points. And that's not like throwing shade or anything. It's just kind of what I think the reality is with a side like that. And seeing how good Nelson is as a team. Now, them almost losing to Wellington College is also another one that you kind of look at and you're like, oh shoot, well then how does this team actually stack up when they do get into their top four and then they start playing John McGlath, or if they can win the Miles Toyota Cup, or if they can even stay in the top four of that Miles Toyota Cup, can they even win the bigger games? If they struggled with Wellington College, it's not going to look good if they start playing St. Thomas and St. Bede's and all those kind of things to stay within that semi-final look. And then even to get out of the South Island, you're going to have to go through John McGlashan, who to me is probably going to be the better side come the end of the season. They're going to be the side that you're going to want to beat down south. They just don't have the teams to compete against week after week in the competition that would I think give them that mental push, if you could say. Because they beat Otago boys 45-19 on Saturday after, that's just such a huge score. And I know that Otago boys is trying to regroup and get their team back after the change of coaches, a few weeks back. And, it just really just disrupts your season and what you have going on. But that's still like a heavy loss, and it still hurts and weighs heavy on the boys. But yeah, it's just one of those things. Tauranga boys is one of those teams that you kind of look at and you go, man, that's another team as well that's doing so good, but in a competition that is so hard, and they lost some early games which you thought that they should have won. Auckland Grammar, losing to Auckland Grammar early on in this year doesn't look good at all for them. Something that I look at too is just and I know that they came back after their trip, after going down south, and they went straight up to Auckland after that, and after that major travel, they had played another game and they played Auckland Grammar and they lost to Auckland Grammar. And then looking at the way that Auckland Grammar's season's going this year, it just doesn't look good. So in terms of rankings, those are also the kind of things that I look at as well. It's I don't just look at the fact that they won and lost and all that kind of stuff. It's who do they win to? How does that actually look? Who do they lose to? How does that actually look? St. John's losing to Rotorua Boys as number one team. St. John's lost by 5 points or 3 points. That's not a heavy loss at all. When you go to their home and you lose by that, and you're losing to the number one team by 3 points, it's that's pretty positive. And that loss, and if Rotorua had lost every game after that, then it would look bad. But because they haven't, they still look good. It's still that way. They've only lost one game, and they lost one game to Hamilton Boys. Another top 3 team, number one team in the country right now. So all those kind of things you look at. And that's why when you look at, St. Bede's beat Timaru College 37-12, which obviously doesn't make it any better in terms of looking at the wins and losses. Even Southland Boys, who are ranked 19th, they lost 33-18 to King's High School. And that's just not great. Dilworth School beating Sacred Heart 27-22. Just another one of those things, it's I don't know how to, it's the reason why I love and hate first team rugby, because you just never know what's going to happen, and you never know how boys are going to react and how boys are going to turn up on the day, because their problems that they have, or the things that cloud their mind, aren't always the same things that we think as adults, what things that actually matter. And so Sacred Heart losing to Dilworth School is just I don't even know when the last time they actually did it, or if they've done it before. But if that's historical, congrats to Dilworth School and winning that. it just makes it harder, I guess, for Sacred Heart to really, I guess, prove that they belong in that top 4. I mean, look at Auckland Grammar. Auckland Grammar won 30-18 over Liston College, who's been, they've just had a bunch of points scored on them this year. I mean, Carlton Boys was playing basketball with that score that they had in last week. 99, was it 99 or 90-0 as a 1A? I was like, I don't think you've ever seen anything like that. But yeah, just some hard ones out there. New Plymouth winning against Gisborne Boys was kind of, I thought that would be a bit of a match as well. I thought it would be a bit closer, to be honest. Howick still winning. St. Paul's doing great. Pukerangi getting a win off Mount Roskill. Botany 46 points, which was great. 22 points, Avondale. I think that 22 points is a little bit too high, especially for Botany Downs. McLean's beating One Tree Hill 27-0. That was a good one. Hard fought match was Southern Cross Campus against Mangere College. Good game against St. Peter's School against Lindisfarne, 21-12 to St. Peter's. Francis Douglas finally coming up. Francis Douglas coming up big. I think that it's almost like they're waking up, to be honest. Hauraki Plains continue to win, which is so good to see in the county's competition. Waiuku also winning over Alfriston in the same competition. Matamata keep winning in the Waikato competition, along with Pukekohe High School. Getting some good wins. Rototuna High School, who I'm going to go and see on Thursday, where they play Fraser High School over here in Hamilton. Western Heights getting a win over Whakatane High School. Te Taumata beating John Paul College, which I wasn't too sure that was. I thought John Paul would win. I really did. And 28-5 is a pretty big difference of score. So I don't know. I think I got to revisit that and see what I really think about that as well. Maybe Te Taumata is a lot better than I thought. Mount Maunganui getting a good win over Trident High School, 31-10. Scots College getting 40 points over Wairarapa. Hibs getting 32-17 over Mana College. That was really surprising. Again, Wellington College 32-7 over St. Bernard. St. Bernard, you just got to regroup and come back again. Season's not over, so you can still do it. Aotea College winning 17-10 over Hutt Valley High School, which I really like that score. It shows a lot of balance, I guess, between those two schools. Selwyn combined 17-12 over Waimea College, which I thought was going to happen anyway. Selwyn's looking pretty good this year. Shirley Boys 48-10 over Aoraki combined. Shirley's like probably the team that you're going to want to watch out for within that Miles Toyota Cup down in Christchurch, because Shirley could be that team that pretty much could jump everybody. Waitaki Boys beating Dunstan High School 26-22. Tyree College winning against South Otago, which was a surprise too. I didn't think that was going to happen, but that's a pretty good win at 21-7. And Wakatupu beating Otago Boys 2nd 15, 50-17, and Mount Aspiring winning over St. Kevin's 26-17. But those are all the scores from this week. And then this up and coming week is going to be another big one, and that's when we'll start to see all the top fours in every competition shaping out and getting its form, and then you start to see schools fall off, and that will be pretty much their season after this next week. I think we're going to start getting a lot of rep teams being named and put out and all that kind of stuff, so I'll put out mine first before everybody else, just so that it doesn't look like I'm a cheat. Anyways, everybody, hope you guys all have a good week. That's me. I'm out. Hush Fruin. Later, boat.